Good afternoon, everyone. Taylor Hodges here for Mississippi State on SI, and this is the Daily Bark. Again, we're going to have another kind of shortish, simple episode for y'all today, and that's going to be continuing to make educated guesses about the Mississippi State football team's depth chart ahead of its first game next week against Southern Miss. Yesterday, we looked at the secondary. Last week, we looked at the quarterbacks, and each of those are kind of like on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Maybe not so far on the secondary in terms of there's a couple more position groups that are even bigger question marks, and then quarterbacks a little more easier known. We know who the starting quarterback's going to be, things like that. So today we're going to kind of try and get somewhere in the middle of that, but probably a little more towards the known, less questions side of things, and that is looking at the running back position. Now, the running back position is already looked at or considered to be the best position group on this Mississippi State team. Whether or not that it pans out to be true or not is why we play the games. But as we sit here now, 10 days away from the first games actually being played, that's just the general consensus about this team is that the running backs, that's the best, that's the position of strength for the Bulldogs this season. And a big reason for that is Devon Booth. He led the team last year in rushing. He is a beneficiary of the Diego Pavia lawsuit that allowed some junior college players to get an extra year of eligibility. And when that came out in December, around that time, that's when Devon Booth, was able to announced that he's going to come back for another season. So he's back. And then the Bulldogs also brought in Fluff Bothwell, who had a fantastic true freshman season a year ago at South Alabama. 834 yards, I believe, and 13 touchdowns. That one I know for sure. And he led the Sun Belt in rushing touchdowns. He's a big get. He's a power running back. Listed at, I have it right here, 5'10", 230 pounds. That's a bruiser running back right there. He looks the part of it. For comparison's sake, Devon Booth is 5'10", 205, which that's about only a 25-pound difference, but that's actually a pretty big difference when we're talking, college football running backs and things like that. So those two, plus Johnny Daniels, who was second on the team last year in rushing, is back. You also got Xavier Guyton, who was on the team last year, as well as Seth Davis, who seems to have recovered from a pretty serious injury. And then there is two true freshmen, Jerron Johnson and Colin Wilson. So that's the running back room right there. Now, what's that depth chart going to look like? If we're just going to look at like how it goes down in order, it's going to be Devon Booth, Fluff Bothwell, Johnny Daniels, Xavier Guyton, and then probably Seth Davis maybe, and then the freshman. That's how it's going to look. How it actually turns out on the field, though, is probably going to be like a two-person running back starting position, maybe even three. And the two obvious ones are Devon Booth and Fluff Bothwell. You got a nice little contrast in styles there, with Fluff being the ironically named running back who is not going to be fluffy at all. He's going to use his power and strength to, basically, he's going to be the thunder to Devon Booth's lightning, potentially. And that's kind of how I see that. And I really, truly think, just based on the additions that the Bulldogs made after spring practices and bringing in, I think it was 5 offensive linemen. including like Blake Steen, Zach Owens, and a couple others. And those two that I mentioned are prime candidates to start. Again, that is one of the position groups we're probably not going to get to, just because there's so much uncertainty with that. And what your guess is going to be as good as mine on that one. But for running backs, I do think there's going to be a heavy focus on running the ball and establishing the run and making teams, opposing defenses, you know, worry about having to actually stop the run. Last season, again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. So many issues that running the ball a lot of times wasn't an option. They had to throw the ball. And again, when you're down two possessions, three possessions, yeah, you can run the ball if you want, but it's almost seen as a sign of giving up rather than strategic uh, play calling instead. Uh, it's just how it's seen. Doesn't always necessarily work out that way because I can remember at least one or two high school teams that when they were up big would it was better for them to throw the ball because they weren't going to score as much. Whereas if they kept running the ball, they were going to keep reeling off 50, 60-yard touchdown runs. And that's just Mississippi Delta high school football for you. Okay, so getting back on track. Booth and Bothwell, those are going to be the two main running backs. I think Johnny Daniels is going to get plenty of opportunities himself. Not necessarily sure in what role, just based on his size, because he's at 5'10", 200. So he's a little bit more like Devon Booth. So maybe he's going to be more the receiving running back, kind of, or, if Booth needs a breather, he would be the one to come in place for him, things, however. Um, as for the others, I could see. I do think we'll see Xavier Guyton and Seth Davis both this year. Probably in more limited roles, maybe more special teams players. And then the freshmen, I wouldn't be surprised if the coaching staff tries to get them in a situation where they can get a red shirt for this season and not lose a year of eligibility. So, good. So, to recap, I think it's going to be Booth and Bothwell. That on the depth chart, it'll probably go. I think though okay. Would it work out? Yeah, it works out alphabetically to go Booth then Bothwell and have the or symbol next to or the not symbol whatever next to Fluff Bothwell's name on the depth chart, and then number two I think will be just by himself Johnny Daniels, and then number three is going to be if they're willing, if they can do two names, it'll be Xavier and Seth Davis. If one, I think it'll probably be Xavier. If only because players coming back from injuries, things it takes time to come back from that. So that's why I say that. If the number three, we'll say is Xavier Guyton, and then that's probably all we'll see on the official depth chart that comes out next week. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. Like I said, pretty short, simple, sweet, to the point. Tomorrow we'll come back again. I'm kind of leaning towards the wide receivers because there's kind of a good mix of known things and unknown things with that group. And also, it's just a fascinating group to talk about. So that's probably where we'll go tomorrow. After that, who knows? But also tomorrow, we'll talk a little bit about Mississippi State soccer, who will be playing their first official game of the season, tomorrow night against Jacksonville State. So we'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. And yeah, so that's going to do it for today. I hope everybody is having a good day, had a good day, is going to have a good day, depending on whenever you watch it, all that fun stuff. And most importantly, just remember, don't do anything I wouldn't do.